What if I told you that the next time a Democrat steps into a voting booth to choose their candidate, that candidate's already been chosen for them? And what if I told you that Democrat candidates have already been vetted, funded, and quietly approved by a little group that you've probably never even heard of? A group with a very specific and very global agenda. And they're certainly not America first. Now, this isn't some shadowy conspiracy theory. This is truth. This is about a political action committee, or PAC, with a multi-million-dollar war chest and even deeper and darker ties, right? And they're working to shape America's foreign policy. Not in the halls of the State Department, though, but right in the 2026 midterm elections. The balance of power in Washington is on a very thin razor's edge. And this group, they're busy hedging their bets. And in this video, we're pulling back the curtain on the Foreign Policy for America Action Network. We're going to follow the money. We're going to investigate how the endorsements and the influencers are building a government loyal not to the voters, but to their own vision of the world, the New World Order. We're also going to expose the seditious group of congressmen, senators, and influencers that are funded by this PAC. And we're going to follow where that money comes from and the shadowy hand that controls it all. Long before any candidate ever gets their name on a ballot, they have to survive something called an invisible primary. It's a brutal gauntlet of fundraising, ass-kissing, and deal-making that happens almost entirely outside the public eye. At the center of this process are political action committees, or PACs, right? And if you think of a PAC, think of it as a collective money pot, right? It lets its donors who support various causes and industries pool their cash together to either boost or bury a candidate. The rules on that get complicated, but their goal is pretty simple: influence. A traditional PAC can inject thousands of dollars directly into a campaign. And that may not sound like a lot of money, but in a tight congressional race, that early seed money can be a shot of adrenaline, right? It allows them to pay for ads, staff, anything that makes the difference between being a real competitor or being an afterthought in the political game. It's like a job interview before the real job interview. And any candidates who pass the test, they get cash, connections, and everything that they need to get off the ground. And those who don't. And this whole system has created a class of political kingmakers, right? And these organizations act as gatekeepers, and they get to decide who is a viable candidate and who isn't. And if you think of it like a political garden, right, these groups don't just pick the winning flowers, right? They cultivate the soil, they add their own special fertilizer, right? They cast shadows over any seedlings they don't like and pluck them out of the ground, ensuring that only their chosen candidate gets the sunlight it needs to survive. So who is the group at the center of our story? It's the Foreign Policy for America Action Network, or FP Action Network for short. They claim to be a non-partisan PAC tied to a larger advocacy group known as Foreign Policy for America. But they're anything but non-partisan. Right? Founded in 2017, they were born as a direct response to the America First movement. Their stated mission is to champion a strong and principled America foreign policy, one built on diplomacy, global cooperation, and commitment to alliances. See, they saw the political world sliding towards America first, and they decided to fight back, not just with ideas, but with money, cold hard cash. They're building a nationwide network to restore what they see as America's tradition of globalism, being open to the world and investing in global institutions rather than investing at home. And this isn't some sleepy think tank that's just pumping out academic papers either. They're a political machine, and they're designed from the ground up to train, find, and install leaders in Congress who see the world the same as they do. And to do that, they've built a serious fundraising operation and a precise, almost cult-like way of picking their legislative soldiers. It all starts with money of one of the richest players in the game. Now make sure you stick around, because as later, we're going to expose the current members of Congress who are supported by this shadowy group and we're going to discover the dark organization that pulls everybody's strings. In politics, money's where your mouth is. And the Foreign Policy for America Action Network has been speaking very, very loudly as of late. Since it launched, the organization has raised a staggering $7.8 million for its candidates. So where does all that cash go? Well, according to their own website, in the 2022 and 2024 election cycles alone, they funneled over $1.9 million directly to their endorsed congressional candidates, with another $1.3 million steered toward the presidential campaign, Biden's campaign. And these aren't random handouts either. It's strategic capital deployed with surgical precision. And now, the 2026 midterms are the main event. And as of early 2026, the Republican Party holds a very thin majority in the House, and Democrats need to flip just a handful of seats to actually regain control. And in an environment like this, every competitive district is a war zone, right? And a targeted blast of cash could be very decisive. This is where FP Action Network shines. They focus their money on what they call extraordinary frontline candidates running in key elections. These are the challengers in toss-up districts or vulnerable incumbents who could tip the balance of power. It's like a 5-star review from a famous food critic, right? Once the group gets the endorsement, other candidates, big donors, party bosses, right? They all see them as a safe bet, and the flood of new money starts to flow in, creating a powerful snowball effect that helps gets this candidate over the finish line. And what is the source of this money? None other than George and Alex Soros. They do this through Open Society Foundation and affiliates like Open Society Policy Center, and they're partnered with the Carnegie Corporation of New York. And they support FP Action Network because the group's mission aligns closely with their priorities of promoting liberal globalism, multilateral cooperation, U.S. global leadership through alliances and institutions, human rights, democratic values, and a diplomacy-first approach to foreign policy that counters America first. Both funders emphasize U.S. engagement in the world to advance open societies, the rule of law, interconnected global challenges, rather than retreat into America first nationalism. FP4A was founded in 2017 explicitly to push back against America first, right? Framing them as cynical and harmful to U.S. interests and values. And this directly resonates with the fundraisers that support them. In essence, these aren't just random donations. They're strategic investments in revitalizing a post-World War II liberal global order that both see as a beneficial to global stability, democracy promotion, and U.S. influence. But to really get to how they're picking our future Congress, you have to look past the dollar signs and look at the ideological purity tests that they make every single candidate pass. So how does FP Action Network get to decide who the money goes to and the official seal of their approval? Well, their selection process is a rigorous and methodical evaluation to make sure that a candidate is in total lockstep with their agenda. FP4A helps cultivate candidates and policies that sustain U.S. entanglement abroad, alliances, diplomacy, multilateral institutions, while tying it to domestic prosperity, countering America first trends. And this low-key support amplifies FP4A's ability to endorse and resource-aligned national security Democrats without massive public visibility, allowing operation from the shadows. Their website aligns this focus on the 2026 midterms with the criteria for endorsements that are based on alignment via questionnaires, statements, and voting records, willingness to lead on issues, sit on key committees, or bring forward legislation, and electoral viability. They favor incumbents who consistently defend principled American engagement and avoid dual endorsements in the same race. They raised over $7.8 million historically for endorsed candidates, including significant sums in the 2022 and 2024 election cycles, mostly congressional Democrats and the Biden presidential effort, right? And they're actively soliciting involvement with applications open early into 2026. You think of them as the most exclusive club in Washington, D.C., right? And to get past the velvet rope, every candidate has to get through a 3-point check. First, the bouncer checks your ID against their list. So to get their support, a candidate has to fill out a massive questionnaire spelling out their positions. Public statements are scoured and voting records are put under a microscope. The organization even has a legislative scorecard that rates members of Congress. A bad score, you're not getting in. Second, the bouncer checks your attitude. They want a commitment to lead. It's not just enough to agree with their policy, right? The PAC looks for candidates who will be the life of the party and champion their cause. They won't want cheerleaders, they want promoters. And third, the bouncer makes sure that you don't kill the vibe. This is electoral viability, right? FP Action Network isn't in the business of backing lost causes. They're making strategic investments that expect a return, a loyal vote in Congress. This 3-step process works like an ideological filter. Before a candidate can even start to make their case to the voters, they first have to prove their loyalty to the principles of this one organization. See, it ensures that lawmakers they put into office arrive in Washington already pre-programmed to support a very specific and very global vision of America's way forward. In the next section, we're exposing the sitting congressmen and senators who draw a seriously shadowy line from this PAC to an even deeper darkness. So what is the end game here, right? What does a Congress shaped by FP Action Network actually look like? Well, the ultimate goal is to build a rock-solid block of lawmakers who will consistently vote to advance policy of global engagement. That means fighting any move towards isolationism or an America First worldview. So who does the dirty work? FP Action Network has endorsed and supported 5 members from the Seditious 6. They've supported this seditious group in various election cycles, providing them with fundraising, public backing, resources aligned with their globalist foreign policy agenda. All right, this includes endorsements, donation links, and statements highlighted in their national security backgrounds and commitment to diplomacy first approaches. Here's a breakdown of senators and congressmen that they've backed from the Seditious 6. Alyssa Slotkin. And they've endorsed her multiple times, including her initial House run in 2018, her re-elections, and her successful 24 Senate campaign. FP Action Network praised her as one of the leading national security voices in Congress and a principled leader with CIA and Pentagon experience. Jason Crow, endorsed in multiple cycles, including 2020 and 22 and 24 for his House seat. As a former Army Ranger with combat experience, his highlighted as a campaign for diplomacy, alliances, and oversight of military engagements. Ukraine, Afghanistan withdrawal, those kinds of things. Mark Kelly, endorsed in 2020 for his initial Senate run, and implicitly supported in subsequent cycles through the group's alignment with his positions. As a former Navy combat pilot and astronaut, FP Action Network backed him for his commitment to alliances, climate action, and to national security issues and diplomacy-led policies. Chris DeLuzio, an Iraq war veteran and Navy officer with intelligence ties. He's featured in their 2026 endorsement frontliners list with direct donation links and aligning their support for military experienced Democrats focused on the integrity and foreign policy. And Chrissy Houlihan. Chrissy Houlihan was first elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2018, becoming the first woman to represent Pennsylvania 06. Chrissy is a U.S. Air Force veteran with 3 years of active duty service and 13 years in the Air Force Reserves with an intelligence background. FP Action Network also supported 2025 gubernatorial winners Abigail Spanberger and Mickey Sherrill. Both are veterans with ties to national security and intelligence. See, this pattern underscores FP Action Network's focus on national security Democrats, right? With intelligence and military credentials, exactly the profile of the Seditious 6. And while 2026 incumbent endorsements are still rolling out, as the cycle is early, their support for these types of candidates is clear through public statements and fundraising efforts. And it brings up the fundamental question. When your representative casts a vote on war, peace, or trade, who are they really representing? The people who elected them, or the globalist network that got them there? Next, we're going to walk into the valley of the dark shadow that pulls the strings on the whole operation. So where does this line go? Well, it's an easy triangulation when you think about it. Since we've looked at the players and those who fund them, the line inevitably leads to the military-industrial complex. The MIC, FP Action Network, and Soros-linked funding makes for a shadowy triad of interlopers, conspirators, and money men who are buying the 2026 midterm elections. And here's how all this snaps together on the patterns. MIC ties come through people that the FP Action Network consistently backs. Ex-CIA, ex-military intelligence veterans, right? These lawmakers often sit on key committees, right? Like the Armed Forces Service Committee, Intelligence, Foreign Affairs Committees, where defense policy gets decided and shaped. These endorsed candidates embody the national security Democrat. It's an archetype that overlaps with military-industrial complex interests, pro-alliance hawks who support military readiness, oversight, and U.S. leadership in endless wars, put in place by the MIC via FP Action Network. This indirectly sustains the ecosystem where military contractors thrive on sustained alliances and global engagements and Pentagon budgets. These are the people who want endless forever wars. All right, the PAC's role is the connector. They provide endorsements, fundraising boosts, and public validation of these guys. It's not about controlling the elections outright, but amplifying a niche wing for a party that aligns with globalist foreign policy. Multilateralism and NATO strengthening, diplomacy first, but with no military backbone. The Soros and Open Society angle adds the funding fuel, right? Past grants from the Soros-affiliated entities like Open Society Policy Center, they helped FP for America and FP Action Network get off the ground with sustained operations, revenues kind of like numbering in 800,000 to the 1 million range annually in recent years, right? Soros Network broadly backs progressive globalism, human rights, and civil society globally. Now, those of us on the right, we see this as enabling a globalist push that dovetails with MIC sustaining policies, right? Endless alliance policies means endless demand for U.S. hardware and presence, which means endless wars. The result is a low visibility group like FP Action Network that quietly helps populate Congress and now even state governors with figures who defend the post-World War II globalist framework, while their military and intelligence credentials give them the credibility on security issues. This triad keeps the establishment of foreign policy lane alive in the Democratic Party. And even as broader politics shift towards nationalism or restraint, this is the quiet crisis that's playing out in our democracy. It's a battle for the soul of our government, and fought not with ballots, but with dollars. And it makes you wonder if we're still a government of, by, and for the people, or if we're becoming a government of, by, and for organized and well-funded groups. See, this isn't a simple problem, and the first step is just knowing that it happens. Look up who funds your representatives. Seriously, go to the Federal Election Commission's website. All of this stuff is public record. And if you think this deep dive into this kind of stuff is important, make sure you share this video to help get the word out. We started with a single question. Is a single PAC secretly picking your next Congress? And what we found is a sophisticated, well-funded, and politically savvy organization that has mastered the political game. Through its $7.8 million war chest and its strict ideological vetting, the Foreign Policy for America Action Network is strategically building a coalition in Congress loyal to its globalist vision. And their work forces us to confront some pretty tough questions about money, power, and representation in America. And that leaves us with one last unsettling question. If the people you vote for are chosen by someone else before you even get to the ballot box, how much choice do you really have at all? Well, Anyway, thanks for listening.